Αξιότιμε Γενικέ Πρόξενε και αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, υπό την ιδιότητά μου της Διευθύντριας του Ελληνικού Προγράμματος της Αθηναϊκής Ακαδημίας, σας καλωσορίζω στο σχολείο μας, το οποίο είναι το πρώτο ελληνικό τσάρτερ σχολείο στη ΣΥΠΑ. Θα θέλαμε να σας εκφράσουμε τις ευχαριστίες μας για τη συμμετοχή σας στη σημερινή τηλεδιάσκεψη με θέμα η επέτειος της 28ης Οκτωβρίου, αναφορές στο τότε και στο σήμερα. Επιτρέψτε μου να συνεχίσω τον λόγο μου στα αγγλικά, καθώς οι περισσότεροι συμμετέχοντες στη γιορτή μας είναι αγγλόφωνοι. Dear Consul General, Mr. Lucas Tsokos, and distinguished guests, as a proud granddaughter of a deceased World War II veteran, I'm more than excited to welcome you to Athenian Academy, the first Greek immersion charter school in USA. On behalf of the Athenian Academy, we would like to thank you for your participation in today's teleconference that takes place on the occasion of the celebration of OXI Day. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to the Defense Attaché of Greece, to US Colonel Pangiotis Vlachopoulos. Colonel Vlachopoulos Panagiotis is a graduate of the Velpidon Military Academy of National Defense College and holds a master's degree in international relations from Panagiotis University of Athens. During his military service, he served in various infantry units and formations, as well as in the Hellenic Army General Staff and other national assignments. Moreover, he has attended various specialized military trainings in Greece and the US. He is married with one child, and since 2021, he lives in Washington, D.C. due to his assignment as Defense Attaché of Greece to US. We would like to welcome and thank Major Stasinakis Nikolos for the coordination. We would like to thank the President of the Federation of Greek Educators of America, Mrs. Stella Kopolis, who is the driving force in the Greek language education. We would like to thank Ms. Aphrodite Kotrosios, CEO and publisher of the Hellenic News of America, Mr. Dimitrios Tsakas, reporter for the Anamnesis Network, and Mr. Angelo Angelatos, owner of the Greek Voice Broadcasting, who promote the Greek program of Athenian Academy. We would like to thank Mr. George Poumakis, the founder of Athenian Academy, as well as our governing board members for their significant contribution. We'd also like to thank Mr. Alex Feloudos and Dr. Angela Combs, who represent the Choice Charter Schools choices, as well as Ms. June Rupert, the principal of the Clearwater campus, and Ms. Sherry Masters, the assistant principal, for their continued support. We're grateful for their excellent work of our Greek language teacher, Ms. Vasiliki Delipalta. We're fortunate to have great teachers, students, and parents who believe in the Greek influence and contributions to Western civilization. Θα ξεκινήσουμε το πρόγραμμα με ένα βίντεο των μαθητών μας, όπου τραγουδούν τον εθνικό ύμνο της Ελλάδας και απαγγέλουν ποίημα για την 28η Οκτωβρίου. We will start the program with a video of our students singing the national anthem of Greece and reciting a poem for October 28th.
Χαρά μεγάλη έχουμε, ελεύθεροι που ζούμε, και σήμερα εορτάζουμε, γελάμε, τραγουδούμε. Ζήτω η πατρίδα μας, ζήτω και η ελευθεριά μας. Ευχή για ειρήνη ας κάνουμε μέσα από την καρδιά μας.
Καλούμε τον Γενικό Πρόξενο της Ελλάδας στην Τάμπα, κύριο Τσόκο, να απευθύνει έναν χαιρετισμό. Ο κύριος Τσόκος πάντοτε συμμετάσχει στις εκδηλώσεις μας και υποστηρίζει τα ελληνικά προγράμματα στη Φλόριντα. We would also like to call the Consul General of Greece in Tampa, Mr. Tsokos. Mr. Tsokos always participates in our events and supports the Greek programs in the state of Florida.
Ήθελα ιδιαίτερα να χαιρετήσω την κυρία Κοκόλη, τον συνταγματάρχη, τον κύριο Βλαχόπουλο και φυσικά εσάς, κυρία Βαρετιμίδου. Και θα ήθελα να σας ευχαριστήσω πάρα πολύ για την ευκαιρία της πρόσκληση να μετάσχω στη σημερινή σας εκδήλωση. I would like to warmly thank the Athenian Academy, Ms. Varitimidou, who is the promoter of this collective effort. And I'm deeply honored to be part of that effort every year. I know that all Greek charter schools in Florida, and more specifically Athenian Academy, they produce a great effort to keep the collective memory alive. It is very important to let the children know and be familiar with the history, not only the history of Greece, but in a wider sense, the history of also of the Western world, the history of the United States, combined with the history of Greece throughout the 20th century and the dramatic events that shaped that period. I won't expand into the significance of the commemoration of the OXI Day. I'm sure Colonel Vlachopoulos will be explicit about it during his presentation. What I would like to do, though, is to stress once more how important is the existence of the Greek charter schools in the state of Florida, but also more generally in the United States. And it is important because it covers the need of the Greek community to let their children learn the Greek language, but it also covers a wider need, which is the importance of having children that they do not have a Greek origin be familiar with Greek history and Greek culture. And in my opinion, this is really very, very important, and it will produce in the future very beneficial results, not only for Greece, but also for those children who will have the benefit to share the perspective of another country, of a European country, which has always been the cradle of Western civilization. And even today, it plays a very important role in Europe and worldwide. So thank you once more for this, and I'm waiting for the rest of the commemoration today. Thank you.
Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κύριε Τσόκο. Thank you, Mr. Tsokos. Θα συνεχίσουμε με τον ακόλουθο άμυνας της Ελλάδας της ΗΠΑ, συνταγματάρχη πεζικού κύριο Βλαχόπουλο Παναγιώτη. Ο συνταγματάρχης πεζικού κύριος Βλαχόπουλος Παναγιώτης είναι απόφοιτος της Στρατιωτικής Σχολής Βελπίδων, της Σχολής Εθνικής Άμυνας της Ελλάδας και κάτοχος μεταπτυχιακού τίτλου σπουδών Διεθνών Σχέσεων του Παντείου Πανεπιστημίου Αθηνών. Έχει υπηρετήσει σε διάφορες μονάδες και σχηματισμούς του ελληνικού στρατού και έχει εκπαιδευτεί σε στρατιωτικά σχολεία στην Ελλάδα και τη ΗΠΑ. Είναι έγκαμος με ένα τέκνο και από το 2021 υπηρετεί στην Ουάσιγκτον εκπροσωπώντας το Υπουργείο Άμυνας και τις ελληνικές ένοπλες δυνάμεις της ΗΠΑ. Εάν υπάρχει χρόνο στο τέλος της τηλεδιάσκεψης, μπορούν να υποβληθούν ερωτήσεις και σχόλια. We will continue with the Defense Attaché of Greece to US, Colonel Pangiotis Vlachopoulos. If time permits, we will open it up for some closing statements and questions at the end of the event. Παρακαλούμε τον συνταγματάρχη Βλαχόπουλο να πάρει τον λόγο. At this moment, we would like to call Colonel Vlachopoulos.
Καλημέρα σε όλους. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Είναι ιδιαίτερη τιμή για μένα που θα απευθυνθώ στον ελληνισμό της διασποράς. Αυτό που βλέπουμε από την Ελλάδα είναι ότι γίνεται φοβερή δουλειά παντού και ειδικά το έχω διαπιστώσει εγώ εδώ πέρα στην Αμερική 14 μήνες που βρίσκομαι τώρα. Υπάρχει η φλόγα του ελληνισμού μέσα και δεν μένει στάσιμη, αλλά συνεχώς μεταλαμπαδεύεται από τη μία γενιά στην άλλη με εκδηλώσεις αυτής της μορφής, αλλά και με όλες τις υπόλοιπες εκδηλώσεις. Αρκεί να σας πω τώρα ότι έρχεται ένα τριήμερο από σήμερα ξεκινώντας, ένα τετραήμερο θα έλεγα, μέχρι και την Παρασκευή, με πλήθος εκδηλώσεων που θα γίνουν εδώ πέρα στην Ουάσιγκτον. για την εθνική επέτειο της 28ης Οκτωβρίου. Να ξεκινήσω λοιπόν λίγο την ομιλία μου. Θα απευθυνθώ στα αγγλικά. Όπως είπατε και πριν, τα παιδάκια καταλαβαίνουν σίγουρα καλύτερα την αγγλική γλώσσα. Με αυτή γεννηθήκανε, ο τόπος τους είναι εδώ, η πατρίδα τους, η μία είναι εδώ, η δεύτερη στην Ελλάδα. Θα απευθυνθώ λοιπόν στα αγγλικά για να με καταλαβαίνουν όλοι. Αν υπάρχει χρόνο στο τέλος, αν θέλει κάποιος να ρωτήσει οτιδήποτε, μπορεί να με ρωτήσει ό,τι θέλει. Okay. Dear Sir Consul General, Mrs. Principal and teachers, special guests, dear students of the Greek Athenian Academy. It is with great joy and deep emotion that I address you today on the occasion of the upcoming Hellenic National Celebration known as the OXI Day on October 28th of 2022. These feelings are inspired not only by the mere importance of OXI Day commemoration, but most importantly by the background of the audience that I stand digitally in front of. Having accepted the invitation to present one of the milestones of the modern Greek history, I was thrilled to realize that I would have the chance to communicate with an audience with close ties to the Greek language and the Hellenic civilization. Through the innovative work of Athenian Academy of Florida, the first Greek charter school in the United States, Greece comes closer to all the young members of the thriving Greek American community in Florida, and of course to all of you that, regardless of origin, share the same interests and passions for the language of Aristophanes, Thucydides, Pericles, and many other flamboyant figures of the world history. My speech today will not be limited to a historic account of the events that took place on the last months of 1940. It will go a bit further and highlight the linkages between Greece and the United States of America during the dark years of German occupation, and how US government and Greek diaspora contributed to the fight for freedom of Hellenism. Finally, I will try to stress why such a celebration remains relevant today in a world that rapidly changes and questions through multiple crises the ideal of peace, freedom, and national self-determination. To start with, it is important to keep in mind that the OXI Day does not represent one more national celebration of the event related to World War II. On the contrary, it expresses the first out-loud call for resistance against the raging fire of fascism that had already burned away almost all Europe at the time. From the end of 1939, the free world watched in despair as one by one countries across Europe surrendered to Hitler's Axis forces. Benito Mussolini's Italy, being carried away by the easy collapse of Low Countries and France, decided to match Nazi glory with an attack on a seemingly easy Greece. Through a trail of provocations which reached their peak with the torpedoing of a Greek destroyer anchored in Tinos Island on August 15, 1940, Italy prepared the ground on the attack to Greece and tried to demoralize the Greek people, which faced the dilemma of succumbing to Axis threats or follow the fate of the Western European countries. At 3 p.m. on October 28, 1940, the Italian ambassador in Athens arrived at the Greek Prime Minister residence and demanded Greece's surrender. The Prime Minister replied with one single word, OXI, which means no, to the Italian ultimatum to surrender. On this day, the Greek Prime Minister, representing the will of and determination of the Greek people, did not just simply lead his country to war with Axis. He empathically roared OXI no to the forces of fascism, tyranny, and hatred, and signaled a resounding yes to freedom, to conscience, and justice. In this way, united Hellenism and set the example for the free world that was in the merge of losing hope in front of the Nazi mechanized supremacy of the time. This cry for freedom has been bolstered by the action of the Hellenic armed forces in the rocky, snowy mountainous range of Epirus, which spoke better than words and astonished friends and foes. The Greek army has been well prepared. Despite the Italian supremacy in numbers, equipment, and the polar temperatures of the 1940 winter period in Epirus Mountains, managed to repel the Italian attacks and drove the Italian army deep inside the Albanian territories that have been used as base of operations for the Italian land forces. The fight against fascist forces from the very beginning, took the form of a whole-of-nation effort. Beyond the male population who enlisted in mass from the first days of the war, women and elders actively supported the war effort in many ways. Women actively engaged in nursing wounded soldiers through the volunteering in Red Cross and military nursing, sister organizations, replaced enlisted men in the public services sector and in the military industry complexes, and even participated in the logistics and transportation services in the mountains of Epirus. Elders originating from Epirus and Macedonia regions with courage and self-determination guided the Greek army forces in the rocky and snowy trails of the Epirus mountain range in order to surprise the Italian invaders and get the Greek forces in advantageous positions. Finally, the Greek academic and art community actively promoted the national efforts abroad and encouraged Hellenism, inspiring the patriotic feelings of the Greek society. The effective Greek counteroffensive of late in 1940 has been characterized as the first Axis setback of the entire war, degraded the myth of Axis invincibility, and gave the Allies the boost in confidence they needed to overturn the outcome of the war and defeat the Axis powers. At the same time, the Hellenic Navy disrupted the Axis sea lines of communications in the Eastern Mediterranean and Adriatic Sea, imposing a new threat to the sustainment of Axis troops in Africa, and helped to release the pressure against the British forces, which have been strained by the Italian advance in North Africa. Leaders from around the world acknowledged Greece's underdog quality, admiring the country's resolve and indomitable courage. It is characteristic that British Prime Minister Winston Churchill would later praise the Greek army, saying, "Hence we will not say that Greeks fight like heroes, but that heroes fight like Greeks." American President Franklin Roosevelt honored the Greeks only a few months after the Axis invasion, noting that their courage inspired all of America. The heroic struggle of the Greek people to defend their liberties and their homes against the aggression of Germany after they had so silently defeated the Italian attempt at invasion has stirred the hearts and aroused the sympathy of the whole American people. Joseph Stalin, the Russian leader, praised the Greek people for their courage in a broadcast by the Moscow radio station on January the 31st, 1943, after the victory against the Germans at Stalingrad. He acknowledged that Greeks' resistance was a turning point in World War II, saying, "I'm sorry because I'm getting old, and I shall not live long to thank the Greek people whose resistance decided World War II." Under these circumstances, Germany, in front of the danger of collapse of the Italian forces in Balkans and worried about the build-up of the British presence in Greece, decided to intervene dynamically and orchestrated a coordinated attack against Greece on April 6, 1941, with assistance of their Italian and Bulgarian allies. The Greek forces, exhausted by the fierce battles in North Epirus and divided into two fronts in Epirus and Macedonia, succumbed in the Nazi supremacy and surrendered after heroic battles on the fortified Metaxa line on April the 20th, 1941. Even though the collapse of the Greek forces has been rather quick based on the previous record, NATO leader Adolf Hitler has been forced to admit in a public speech in the Reichstag that German soldiers had never faced a more courageous adversary until now, praising the self-denial and determination of the Greek forces. The price for the battle for freedom has been high. More than 90,000 soldiers were killed and significant infrastructure have been destroyed due to the Italian and German air bombings. Yet, the worst was to come. The Nazi occupation has been one of the darkest pages of the Greek history, leaving the country ruined and its population devastated by the German atrocities, which included mass killings, starvation, and systematic exploitation and theft of cultural and industrial heritage. The Axis atrocities and the indomitable will for freedom and self-determination quickly led the civilian and uniformed Greeks to resistance inside the country, and as part of the Allied forces in the deserts of North Africa, in the Mediterranean Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean. Unified under a common cause, Greeks with their British and American allies continuously engaged the German occupation forces in the mainland, resulting in more than 20,000 losses of axes in the occupied Greece during the period between 1941 and 1944. At the same time, the exiled Greek government and the reorganized armed forces in Egypt participated in the majority of land and naval allied operations in North Africa and Europe till the end of the war. To the freedom cause, Greece has not been left alone. The British originally and the American in the process supported the national efforts for freedom and self-determination. US support has been unequivocal through the provision of funds and equipment towards the exiled Greek government, and with the remarkable effort of the multiple humanitarian societies to orchestrate a relief effort to save the starving Greek population in occupied Greece. Under the auspices of US President Franklin Roosevelt, an impressive war relief fund for Greece has been initiated, and defensive initiatives started to be funded through the Middle East British Army Command. The flow of funds, moreover, in a symbolic gesture during the peak of the World War II, on June 10, 1943, the US government transferred an anti-submarine warship named King George II to signify the hope that Greece will be soon liberated from the control of Axis forces. Beyond the official US authorities, people of America responded to the plight of Greece for support, both during the glorious victories against Mussolini's forces and to the devastation that followed the Nazi occupation. Americans from all walks of life expressed their admiration for the tiny nation that was the birthplace to so many ideals America has been founded upon. To this direction, Greek diaspora's role proved to be pivotal, since from the first days after the Italian invasion used AHEPA's existing network to facilitate fundraising efforts. Spiros Kouras, the founder of 20th Century Films, founded the Greek Relief War Association, which during the period 1940-1945 raised more than $5 million in cash and shipped about 700,000 tons of foods, clothing, and medicine to alleviate the grievances of Nazi occupation. Beyond the financial and material support, the Greek diaspora served under stars and stripes in support of Hellenism. It is worthwhile to mention that paradigm of the 122nd Infantry Battalion, which has been established by Franklin Roosevelt at the request of the Greek government in exile to support the resistance efforts in occupied Greece. The battalion has been almost exclusively manned by Greek Americans who enthusiastically enlisted to serve in special operation deployments in Greece. Their activities included training of the Greek guerrilla forces that have been active in Greece, intelligence gathering and sabotage of Axis infrastructures in the country, gaining the respect of the fighting Greeks, and the recognition of the Greek government and the US Congress, which has recently awarded the battalion members with the Congressional War Medal. This honorary decoration, as well as the continuous praise of the Greek effort during World War II by various historians and governments, indicate that even though more than 80 years have already passed, and there are a diminishing few who remember in real time the heroic hour that cost Greece so dearly, the OXI Day's celebration remains more timely than ever. All of us in Greece, and not only us, but the entire world, have been blessed with the legacy of the sacrifices of full measure that adorn the mountain passes, the fields of honor, and the island bastions of freedom. For this reason, every year on the October 28th, extensive celebrations take place throughout the country and in the majority of Greek communities abroad. Epicenter of the celebration is the city of Thessaloniki, where a spectacular military parade takes place in order to pay respect to the fallen heroes of the anti-fascist struggle and renew our commitment to preserve freedom, democracy, and self-determination of our nation, as our ancestors have done during World War II. Such a commitment is equally important nowadays that the global community stands in front of a resurging authoritarianism and watches revisionist, nationalist, and militaristic powers to bring war and crisis in Europe and around the world. Under these circumstances, the OXI messaging to war and oppression not only remains relevant and timely today, but also serves as a beacon to unite all of us in support of the brave Ukrainian people who fight to face down the forces of authoritarianism and violence of today. Furthermore, the OXI paradigm and the historical accounts of the events that took place in the first half of 1940s reminds all of us that freedom comes at price. And to quote Pericles, freedom is the sure possession of those alone who have the courage to defend it. In this sense, we all have to bear in mind that if we want our societies to keep thriving, we have to be always ready to pay a similar price without reservations, indecisiveness, or hesitation in order to prove equal to the millions of Greeks, Americans, and other allies that have fallen all around the world during the World War II. Dear students, esteemed members of the Athenian Academy, in my two days address, I've spoken about the historical events that took place in 1940 and those that followed the Axis occupation of Greece for almost 4 years. I've briefly indicated that during this struggle, Greece has not been left alone, and that your ancestors, Americans and Greeks living in the US, unequivocally supported the Hellenic cause and even gave their blood for our national freedom. Under the prism, we, as Greeks, have every reason to celebrate and honor the sacrifices of our ancestors and our allies for the preservation of freedom and democracy. However, it would be unwise or even naive to remain complacent. We need to foster relations, cultivate multilateralism, and enhance cooperation between states, people, and cultures in order to remain relevant in our globalized era and ensure that we benefit from mutually beneficial alliance in the same way that Greece did during the World War II period. In this effort, each and every initiative, from the high-profile diplomatic efforts to the mere educational initiatives like the today's one, offers services to our people and enriches the understanding and cooperation between two nations that share the same ideals and experience the same challenges in today's world. Thank you so much.
Αξιότιμε συνταγματάρχη Βλαχόπουλε, σας ευχαριστούμε για την αποδοχή της πρόσκλησής σας και την εξαιρετική παρουσία σας. Αν έχετε την καλοσύνη να σταματήσετε την κοινοποίηση της οθόνης σας για να σας δούμε. Πάρα πολύ ωραία. Σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Dear Colonel Vlachopoulos, thank you for accepting our invitation and thank you for your excellent presentation and speech. That was very informative. Σας ευχαριστούμε και πάλι. Θα θέλαμε να καλέσουμε την πρόεδρο της Ομοσπονδίας Ελλήνων Εκπαιδευτικών Αμερικής, την κυρία Κοκόλη. Η κυρία Κοκόλη είναι πραγματικά πρέσβυρα παιδείας στον ομογενειακό ελληνισμό και αρρωγός όλων των ελληνικών σχολείων στο εξωτερικό. We would like to call the president of the Federation of Greek Educators of America, Mrs. Kokoulis.
Καλημέρα σε όλους. Συγχαρητήρια στην οργανώτρια διευθύντρια των ελληνικών της Αθηναϊκής Ακαδημίας Charter School. Συγχαρητήρια στον γενικό μας πρόξενο, στον κύριο Λουκά Τσόκο, που αγαπάει την παιδεία, εμπράκτος το έχει αποδείξει, σέβεται το έργο των δασκάλων και πραγματικά του αξίζουν συγχαρητήρια. Στον καταπληκτικό αξιωματικό μας, τον κύριο Βλαχόπουλο, που αντιπροσωπεύει την Ελλάδα μας σε αυτή τη χώρα που έδωσε τη δημοκρατία και όλες τις ηθικές αξίες στον πολιτισμένο κόσμο. Συγχαρητήρια, congratulations for the beautiful speech and the analysis of the war of OXI that, as you saw, and the students, if they're watching, they can tell now the history of Greece is history of the world. They were not fighting only for freedom, but they were fighting to maintain the Greek culture, the values of democracy, the values of peace, and the values, the ethical values that the whole world needs today. Again, congratulations to the Athenian Academy for the beautiful programs that they follow, and they educate the children that this day is not a day of war, is a day to remember that the civilized world λέει όχι στον πόλεμο, όχι στην καταστροφή, όχι στην αδικία, όχι στο φασισμό, αλλά μαθαίνουν τα παιδιά μας in the public school, especially in this special type of public school, they learn the values of how the civilized world has to follow. Ναι στην ειρήνη, ναι στη δικαιοσύνη, ναι στις πανανθρώπινες ανθρωπιστικές αξίες. Μπράβο σας όλοι που ήρθατε σήμερα εδώ να γιορτάσουμε αυτή τη μεγάλη γιορτή την ημέρα του όχι. Τα charter schools είναι διαμάντι για την Ελλάδα και pride για την ελληνοαμερικάνικη κοινωνία. Εδώ στην Αμερική είμαστε σε θέση να καταλαβαίνουμε τις αξίες της παιδείας και η Αθηναϊκή Ακαδημία, όπως και όλα τα άλλα charter schools τα οποία την χάνει να έχω επισκεφτεί και γνωρίζω, κάνουν άριστο έργο. Διαιωνίζουν την ιστορία μας, την καλή μας ιστορία, τη δόξα της φυλής μας και μορφώνονται με δημοκρατία, ελευθερία και αξίες που θα τις χρησιμοποιήσουν στη ζωή τους αργότερα. Συγχαρητήρια λοιπόν σε όλους, συγχαρητήρια στην κυρία Σεβαστή που στέκει διαμάντι στην παιδεία της charter αυτής της ειδικής εκπαίδευσης, συγχαρητήρια στην διεύθυνση της Ακαδημίας, τον κύριο Βελούδο, που πάντα προβάλλει ωραίες εκδηλώσεις, μαθητικές εκδηλώσεις.
Thank you so much. Finally, we would like to call our principal, Mrs. Rupert, to conclude this presentation.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to say it was a pleasure to have you all join us today, and I would like to begin by acknowledging Kyria Sevasti for putting together such a wonderful OHI Day program. She always does such a great job, and we greatly appreciate everything she does here. A special thank you to our esteemed guest, Consul General of Greece, Mr. Lucas Chakos, Defense Attaché of Greece to US, Colonel Vlachopoulos, as well as the President of Greek Educators of America, Mrs. Stella Kokolis. We truly appreciate your time and participation today, and we look forward to your continued support here at Athenian Academy. Thank you all.